Welcome to episode 63 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live in the Vault studio from the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my co-host, my colleague, my good friend, and the man who is still recovering from the change to daylight savings time, John Scott Sloat.
It's been a particularly difficult change to daylight savings.
Yeah?
Yes. Usually I have a trip to Taiwan this time of year, and I just miss it. And I come back to a new time and jet lag and all those things. But to experience it, it's just terrible. Why do we do this to ourselves?
We do this so that it stays light into the evening hours when it's warmer.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But I am whooped the last couple of days. Just tired.
Yeah. It's but it's a sign that spring is on the way. Though we keep moving this earlier and earlier. This whole daylight. Like I remember it used to be like late March when we do this.
Interesting.
Not like second weekend of March kind of thing. But
interesting. Yeah, and we were talking pre-show that there's a bill in the Senate, I think, to take it away, which would be interesting.
Well, to actually make it permanent, meaning that we would just stay on this current 1 hour ahead forever. Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. I don't know this because I'm not an Indiana native, but apparently, like that's controversial around here. The whole daylight savings time around here. I don't get it.
People are crazy about it. Yeah,
it's some weird controversy that we outsiders are not privileged to.
I don't get
nuances
it. And it's been like 15 years since that was reality, and they still complain about it on the internet. Wild stuff.
Yeah, well, you can find people complaining about everything on the internet. So. But yeah, I don't get it, and you can send all your explanations to the podcast email.
Sure, which comes to my phone.
Yeah. Which is variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. You could also reach us on Twitter at V&S Pod. You can hit us up on Facebook. Give us a like, give us a follow, Various and Sundry Podcast. And we do have our own YouTube channel, which you can go to and subscribe as well. We would love for you in whatever venue you consume our podcast, if it's possible, to leave a rating and a review. That helps.
5-star reviews only.
Yes, of course.
5-star reviews only.
Of course. So, well, as we are in on this Monday afternoon as we record, yesterday was Selection Sunday. And John, the madness is about to truly begin here.
Yeah, on Friday this year, though. Normally it's on a Thursday.
Yes.
The games start, but this year it's Friday for whatever reason. But yeah, it's been 2 years since we've had this. Yes,
indeed. I remember that being an especially crushing blow last year, because I do look forward to this time of year in terms of, I think this event, in part because it's spread out over several weekends, and also because it combines, you have just the Cinderella effect as well as the since it's a one-and-done tournament, it just feels different than other sporting events. I mean, obviously you have the NFL playoffs, but the disparity between a Kansas City and a Cleveland is not that great, even though it might feel great. I mean, that was a one-possession game.
Sure.
This in the divisional playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. So in the NCAA tournament, you've got these really small schools that nobody even knows exists unless they're like from the area, except for the fact that they get into the NCAA tournament like, oh, interesting. I've never heard of that school before.
Yeah, you get your Wichitas in there, and you get
Wichita State. Yep.
Yeah, Loyola coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, and of course you get your directional schools in there as well. Mm-hmm. So, but why don't we, right off the top of the program here, let's make sure people know how to participate in our own bracket competition. We wanted to do this last year, and obviously COVID killed that among many things. And so we are renewing this, or actually doing it for the first time, I suppose. John, how does someone participate in our bracket challenge?
Yeah, so it's on both our Facebook page and our Twitter page right now, and we'll put it out again probably Wednesday or Thursday this week again.
I think we should put one out every day.
Every
Just
day.
a reminder. Hey, we want to get as many people as possible. We've already got like 9 or 10 so far
10-ish,
as of recording it now. So,
but we'll certainly in the show notes here, any of our social media, you should be able to find a link to sign up and then make it nice and easy for
and we're doing it through Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Correct?
Yep.
Yeah, you'll be able to find the link on the social media venues, but we're doing it through Yahoo. It's the Various and Sundry. It is Various and Sundry podcast group, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'd love for you to participate in that. And if you happen to win, not only do you get bragging rights, but you'll get a signed copy of one of my books.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's something to look forward to. And let's dive in. Did you watch any college basketball over the weekend, John?
Nope. Not a lick.
All right. So that makes you even better poised to probably do well in the bracket competition.
Perhaps. I don't know. I'm chronically with college basketball. I catch maybe 6 or 7 games a year and then watch the tournament all the time and quickly learn who the players are and who's poised to do really well.
Yeah.
But why don't you fill me in on college basketball from the weekend? Yeah.
So this past weekend, conference tournaments and such, the two that I paid the most attention to were the Big Ten.
Okay, of course. Yeah.
Of course. And Ohio State had a good run. They came into the tournament losers of 4 straight games, and so you just kind of wondered, are they going to turn this thing around? What's happening? And they won 3 games to get to the tournament championship game on Sunday. So they beat Minnesota, in which they led by 12 with a minute and a half to go and saw their lead cut to 1 with 15 seconds. They're terrible at closing out games.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purdue, they led Purdue for almost the entire game on Friday and allowed Purdue to come back and tie it, send it to overtime. And then they won by like 9 in overtime.
I do remember seeing tweets about these games. So, yeah, all of this is – I saw Purdue fans and Ohio State fans going at it on Twitter. Yeah.
And then Saturday in the semifinals, they played the team up north. And they won that game. However, they managed to nearly blow it was like a 7 or 8 point lead late in which Michigan had the final shot. And one of their better players missed a contested 3 that would have won it. So they survived. And then yesterday, Ohio State ran out of gas, lost to Illinois in overtime. So 2 overtime games, all of them, other 2 games tight. Like, I think Ohio State's just gassed. But, I mean, that's not to take anything away from Illinois. Illinois is a great team. They are a well-deserving 1 seed. So that was the Big Ten tournament. The other tournament that I kept an eye on was the Mid-American Conference, John.
The MAC?
The MAC. I was all in for some MACtion this past weekend because my beloved Ohio Bobcats, my own alma mater, managed to, as the 5th seed, I think, win the conference tournament.
Wow.
And make the NCAA tournament. So first time since 2012, which an interesting did you know fact. The last time they played in the tournament, John, they actually won a couple of games. Do you know one of the teams that they beat in the tournament last time?
Oh, my goodness. I remember this. Because this was the year I think Ohio State went to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Did they beat – I want to say they beat a blue blood.
They sure did.
Was it Duke?
Nope.
It wasn't Kentucky.
Nope.
It wasn't Kansas.
Look to the north, John. Look to the north.
Did they beat
They beat
Michigan?
Michigan.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And so that was back in the day when Michigan fans loved to try to insult Ohio State by just referring to them as Ohio and not Ohio State.
Mm.
And so, of course, there was all sorts of delight on social media about Michigan losing to both Ohio State and to Ohio as well. So, but one of the things to look for with Ohio, they have a matchup. They can win a game or two. They're good enough to win a game or two.
So who do they have at the outset?
They have Virginia.
Okay, Virginia is a good team.
They're a 4 seed, but they're currently in COVID quarantine.
What does that mean?
Meaning that they can't practice. They are going to be out of quarantine, from what I understand, by the time they would have to play because they had a positive test in their program.
Okay, so the whole team doesn't have COVID. They're
No,
just
I
in
think
quarantine.
one player had it. I think. Well, they don't say it was a player. They said it was one tier 1 personnel. So that's players, coaches. I forget where they draw the line on that. But so in any case, something to keep your eye on with Ohio.
Let me tell you, the verbiage that we've adopted.
Yeah.
Tier 1 personnel of the basketball
sort
team.
of like essential
worker.
Yeah.
Wild.
In any case, a guy to keep your eye on for Ohio, a kid named Jason Preston. Fascinating story. Came out of high school, had no D1 offers.
Okay.
Went to a prep school and basically like did 1 year of like a prep school after college, sort of a college prep kind of place, and put together his own like highlight reel and plastered it all over social media.
Like got his friends to retweet it.
Yeah, got it to go wide enough where he ended up getting offered by Ohio University. Mm-hmm. And he's averaging like 16, 17 a game.
That's awesome.
He's their best player. And he has a chance, I think, with a little bit more development of strength. Like he could have an outside chance of making it to the league down the road.
That's a positive social media story.
Yeah.
And we need positive social media stories.
Fascinating. Yeah. So in any case. So I thought we could briefly just go through each region and just talk about briefly top 2 seeds here. So starting in the West, you've got Gonzaga as the 1 and you've got Iowa as the 2. Now here's a place where I think the committee missed an opportunity because Gonzaga plays the winner of one of the play-in games between Norfolk and Appalachian State.
Oh, they could have done that against Michigan?
They could have put that against Michigan.
They weren't thinking about the ratings, obviously.
I know. So, yeah, so the West, Gonzaga and Iowa out west. In the East, you've got the 1 seed Michigan and the 2 seed Alabama. Starting to sound like more college football there. But
yeah. And Alabama, they've got a good squad.
They do. They have a fast-paced style of play that can be difficult for teams to adjust to.
Also, Alabama's playing a team that I only ever hear about during the tournament, Iona.
Yeah.
I don't think they even have academics. They just have a basketball team that shows up every March.
That's right. That's right.
To play ball.
Yeah. Then in the South, you've got 1 seed Baylor, and the 2 seed there is Ohio State.
Okay.
So not a bad draw for Ohio State. Baylor was terrific, but they had a COVID shutdown of like 2-3 weeks.
And they just haven't been the same.
They haven't been the same. They went from being great to really good. So it'll be interesting to see if they can recapture some of that early magic.
How much research have you done on Oral Roberts?
Oral Roberts is one of the best offensive teams in the tournament by the metrics.
Interesting.
They've got a guy that scores like 25 a game.
Okay.
However, they are statistically the worst defense in the tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. So
okay.
We'll see if that
does Carmelo Anthony play on that team?
Maybe.
It's a graduate student.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll see what kind of damage Ohio State can do. Purdue is also in that bracket, in that region as well. If they advance, they could get a Sweet 16 matchup with Baylor. So it'd be interesting to see what that looks like. And then in the Midwest, you've got Illinois as the 1 seed. And you've got Houston as the 2 seed.
Interesting.
Hard to know what to make of them. They're good, but they play in a weak conference. So it's always challenging with teams like that when you get a team that just dominates their own conference, but they're getting the steady drip of poor competition, comparatively speaking. Will they be ready for March? Hard to know.
And truthfully, this is the first time I've been scrolling through the tournament. Who missed out? Who got left off?
See, I didn't watch any of the coverage last night because I had Life Group, and then just I don't find that coverage that interesting because I just think, all these so-called experts are often wrong, and I get weary of hearing, the talking heads talk about, I can't believe this team got left out, but then they refuse to say who should be taken out.
Who should be taken out? Yeah.
Sorry, it's a 68-team tournament. So
and that's not necessarily what I'm saying. Duke is not on this.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So Duke is not in. Kentucky is not in. Indiana is not in. There was another blue blood. Oh, I think is UCLA in? I can't remember if UCLA made it.
North Carolina is in.
Yeah, I don't think UCLA is in. Maybe I missed
Did Kansas make it? Yes,
they
Kansas
did. Yeah, they went on a late season run where
they got a 3 seed.
Yeah, they went. They were struggling, and then they figured out a way to turn it around. So they're one of those dark horse teams that potentially is flying under the radar unusually.
So, by the way, I don't think we've talked about this on pod. Did you see what happened to Patrick Ewing at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, that happened this past weekend, or late last week, I guess. So,
oh my goodness!
Yeah, how do you not recognize Patrick Ewing?
He's 7 foot tall.
Yeah,
and he's right. His name is in the rafters.
Yeah, and he has I get he's probably wearing a mask, but he has a pretty distinctive looking face too. Mm-hmm. He's not.
Yeah, he's ugly as sin.
Yeah, he's not the prettiest man, but I don't get how that's possible. How you don't recognize him. Like, who do you think he is?
Yeah.
Like just some random guy who happens to be 7 feet walking in like a player's or coach's entrance? Like, who?
And you asked him for his pass. Man.
Yeah.
That guy's got to be fired at this point. Anyway, I saw Georgetown on that list. Yeah. I'm glad they won the Big East. Excited to see what they do in the tournament.
A little bit of that was an upset, though. They beat Villanova. Villanova has been terrific, but their best player, I think, is out for the rest of the season with some kind of injury, maybe a knee or something. So,
and I'm a big Patrick Ewing fan, obviously. So I'm excited to see what he does in the tournament coaching. I think he wins the tallest coach award. Probably,
yeah. I mean, I don't know of any other 7-footers that are probably coaching.
Yeah.
Though Juwan Howard, I think, is like 6'10", 6'11". He's not a 7-footer, but he's close.
Well, maybe him and Patrick can go at it, on the court.
Would they have? Well, they would have played against each other.
They would have played against each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Little, if they go to overtime, those two teams go to overtime, just have the coaches play one-on-one out in the
And I heard something about the tournament. Maybe you can confirm this for me, that teams only need, with COVID, they only need 5 players to play a game?
Yes.
Is that normal, or is that just sort of like hey, this is COVID right now, and we're going to put this in place that a team only needs 5 players to play a game?
I don't know that there are any restrictions in the past. I mean, basically, you got to have 5 guys to put on the floor, but I'm not sure if that's something brand new or
that's wild to me.
Yeah, you would hope it wouldn't come down to that. I mean,
although I'd love to see it. Like I would tune in for that to see these teams sort of. Well, Michigan's taking the floor and only has 5 players because the other 12 are COVID quarantine.
There was a game a few years ago. I don't remember the teams now, where I think a team was only able to dress like 7 guys because of sickness and that sort of stuff. Obviously, well before COVID. And they had 3 guys foul out. And they played the last, maybe like the last 5 minutes of the game with 4 guys.
Wow.
And they still nearly won. So, in any case, tournament action starts Friday, though the first 4 games actually start Wednesday. But for our bracket competition, you just have to have your picks in before noon on Friday when things tip off.
Sweet. So, looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Yes, absolutely. One other sports nugget before we move on is the fact that Drew Brees made it official. He's retiring from the NFL, and no doubt figuring out which broadcast network he's going to work for.
NBC. He landed on NBC.
He? Okay.
Yeah, I got the notification this morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So he's just going to continue to roll in the dough. I'm sure NBC opened up the vault and gave him truckloads of money.
Well, So he put out a workout video about a week ago, And people were looking at it and analyzing the workout video and noticed that he had significantly more hair in the workout video than he normally did in the course of a season. So that fueled a lot of speculation that he was going to leave football and go to the booth.
So you're suggesting maybe he hit up LeBron James for some suggestions on a hair clinic to help him out.
Yes. I also saw a poster for Space Jam 2 with LeBron James and Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
And they had and somebody put over an arrow pointing to LeBron James's hair and says greatest CGI work of the year, up for an Oscar,
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah. So anyway, we could easily go on, but we do need to talk about our main topic for the day, which is we're going to continue our series on the creeds.
Yeah.
So this is it's our third episode on the creeds.
Third episode of 3.
Yes. Talking about some of the key creeds. We've talked about the Apostles' Creed. We've talked about the Nicene Creed. And today we're talking about one that some people call it a creed. Other people call it a definition.
Yes. Yes.
But whatever we're calling it, we'll go with creed just because we've been working on the creeds.
We've been working our way through the creed. The subject matter is certainly creed-worthy.
Creedal,
Yeah.
yes. So this one was settled at the Council of Chalcedon in
Chalcedon.
451, I think.
451, yeah.
Yeah,
451.
So, John, why don't you walk us through the history here? Just what was going on that necessitated this and led up to this creed?
Well, I think we'll get to the very specifics of that in just a moment, but it's important to remember that this sort of definition with Chalcedon is going on while the empire is collapsing around it. So Vandals at this Leo, who we'll talk about in just a moment, was negotiating with the Vandals and with the barbarians who were coming in to sack Rome, while also writing about this topic over here. So what's going on with this creed? Really, it's a little bit of a follow-up, I would say. Where Nicaea was defending the point that Christ is fully God, because there were people out there saying, he's lesser. Right. Nicaea was really saying that. And then it kind of got to the point where some were taking this too far and saying that he's so God that he's not human at all. Mm-hmm. And so Chalcedon really steps in and gives us some solid definition of Christ's nature, of his two natures, of his humanity and his divinity, both fully man and both fully God.
Okay. Yeah. So any additional historical context that you think might be helpful for us before we actually read the creed or definition itself?
Yeah. A fellow named Eutychus would have argued that Christ had a singular nature that was fully divine. And I believe he would have also said he also has a human nature, but it's like a drop in the ocean of his divinity.
Yeah.
Which is a wild way to put it. Yeah. You just don't see that much art in modern day theology, quite as much.
Yeah.
Maybe that's me throwing a challenge out to you, Doc, for your next book. And then a fellow named Flavian, I believe Antioch, accused him of heresy. Kind of a classic move.
Sure.
And banished him from Constantinople, another kind of classic move. And the two of them sort of start going at it, and then they appeal to Rome, which is an interesting move. Like, hadn't necessarily been done up until this time. And that causes Leo, who's known as Leo the Great, to kind of come in and write what is known as his tome, which is basically answering this question, and he really gives us the one person, two natures, fully God, fully man. My goodness, I always say this in my church history class, but it is very much a Western person coming in to settle an Eastern problem. And this furthers the divide that we began to see and we hinted at last week in Nicaea. It furthers that divide and will eventually lead to 1054 where the schism happens.
Yeah, and some of that too is reflected even just in language, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got the Western Church, Latin-based language, and you've got the Eastern Church, Greek-based. And so even some of that becomes noticeable as church history unfolds in terms of difference in language, difference in culture, difference in approaches to thinking about some of these different theological issues.
Well, and one of the interesting things at the schism in 1054, when the Pope sends one of his cardinals down there to deal with this, he sends a guy that doesn't speak Greek. He only speaks Latin. And that's for negotiations, that's not helpful.
No, really not.
And it's sending a bit of a message in and of itself.
Yeah. So are we ready to read this?
I think so. Do you want to? I feel like I've talked now for a little bit. Do you want to?
Well, it is at least half your show.
Yeah,
so.
it is half my show. So do you want to give it a read?
Sure.
Okay. Lovely.
Okay. We then, following the Holy Fathers, all with one consent, teach men to confess one and the same Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, the same perfect in Godhead and also perfect in manhood, truly God and truly man, of a reasonable soul and body, consubstantial, let's come back to that term, consubstantial with us according to the manhood, in all things like unto us, without sin, begotten before all ages of the Father according to the Godhead, and in these latter days, for us and for our salvation, born of the Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, according to the manhood, one and the same Christ, Son, Lord, only begotten, to be acknowledged in two natures, inconfusedly, unchangeably, indivisibly, inseparably. The distinction of natures being by no means taken away by the union, but rather the property of each nature being preserved and concurring in one person and one subsistence, not parted or divided into two persons, but one and the same Son, and only begotten, God the Word, the Lord Jesus Christ, as the prophets from the beginning have declared concerning him, and the Lord Jesus Christ himself taught us, and the creed of the Holy Fathers has handed down to us.
Nice work.
Yeah.
You didn't stumble at all.
Well, yeah, my telecommunications background comes in handy occasionally, at least here.
That was linguistically tricky.
a little bit. So, so when you read through that, John, what are some of the phrases or the clauses or lines that grab attention that we should maybe focus on?
Probably the first one we come across, and I'm looking for it right now. Truly God and truly man, consubstantiated according to manhood, and all things like us without sin. I would say that section right there. Also, I missed it before, perfect in Godhead, perfect in manhood. There seems to be several attempts to go, Jesus is fully God, Jesus is fully man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the that's really the punchline at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
And we'll circle back around to this at the end of our discussion, but if you take nothing else away from what this definition or creed is trying to get at, it is trying to make clear that Jesus is fully human and he is fully God.
Yeah.
And of course, let's be honest, that blows our minds in terms of trying to put that together, right?
Right. What's the theological term for this? Hypostatic union?
Yes.
That God is 100% man, 100%
Jesus
God.
is fully
Yes. Jesus is 100% man, 100% God.
Yes.
It does. It blows the mind a little bit.
Yeah. And so on the one hand, you want to give a little bit of grace to those trying to wrestle with this and figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
But at the same time, the trying to put this together in a concise way. It's part of the beauty of a creed, really, is trying to come up with common language that we can all say that gets at what we're trying to say, that the scriptures themselves teach. And again, that's an important piece to keep reminding us of, that these creeds are an attempt to summarize what the Bible itself says about Jesus, not some sort of extra attempt on the side as let's make this authoritative too. It's, well, no, this is an attempt to summarize in a memorable form, in essence, what the Scripture teaches about Jesus.
Anytime I think of this creed, I often think about Shai Lin, and he has a song called, I believe it's called the Hypostatic Union, and he raps about Jesus being 100% man, 100% God, and then he goes 200%. It's funny, but
I will resist the urge to ask you to go ahead and drop a few lines of that.
I can pull it up on my phone and play it through the microphone.
It's okay. That probably violates some sort of copyright.
Oh gosh, yeah, I don't want to get into that.
But let's go back to that line. Back to this line of according to let's see, one and the same Christ, Son, Lord, only begotten, to be acknowledged in two natures. Inconfusedly, in other words, the two natures don't get mixed up with each other to create a third sort of mutant hybrid nature.
Which was an argument somebody was making at that time. Yes.
Yeah. And really, even there were some attempts to be like, well, so the divine part of Jesus was his spirit, but he had like a human mind, and like trying to really parse out even those pieces of things.
Oh, yeah.
So this is an attempt to say, no, he was fully God and he was fully man. He had a human mind, a human spirit, etc. So inconfusedly, unchangeably, so that, again, they didn't mix together or even change each other.
Or I think somebody at the time was arguing that at his baptism some of these things changed.
Sure.
That he took on godness at that time.
Indivisibly, so that the first two are like, okay, human and divine natures distinct. But then this third term comes along and says, but they're united. Like they weren't like, they weren't so separate in the sense that they're like completely unrelated to each other kind of thing.
Yes. And it's important to, again, say this is a bit of a mystery to us sitting here today, because I'm watching you and your face is all twisted trying to even describe this.
Sure.
And, this is, over 1,000 years later.
Yeah. Inseparably. So again, stressing the unity or the union of, and even though the phrase hypostatic union is not in this creed, that's a phrase that came to be used in theological discussions to reflect this union of the two natures. So those are some of the key things that I think really to highlight there.
Now, Doc, what do you make of the phrase, born of the Virgin Mary, the Mother of God?
Yeah. I
mean, that's the Latin there, I looked this up, is the God bearer.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, the God, I think it was a Greek, Theokatos, I believe.
Huh.
The God bearer. What do you make of that term?
Yeah, well, you can certainly see how that language is going to lead in some directions that we as Protestants are not going to go.
Yeah, we're not comfortable with
that. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I wouldn't want to put it that way as we're talking today. But I'm uncomfortable with that.
You'd be okay just saying born of the Virgin Mary and then moving on from there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's where I'd be comfortable as well. I think I'd be okay getting rid of the God bearer.
Well, but see, that's different though. The God, and maybe it's just a translation issue then. The idea of the one who bore God's entrance physically into the world like that, at that point I go, okay, I get what you're trying to say. But when you say the mother of God, I think that's getting a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it's going down a very Catholic road that you and I would prefer not to go down.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably definitely
As we sort of bring this discussion to a close, John, why does this matter? I mean, why does this matter just at a very practical level about the nature of the gospel?
Yeah. My understanding is it has everything to do with salvation. That if Jesus is not God, then he can't forgive sin. But also, if Jesus is not human, then he can't take our place. He can't be our representative.
Yeah.
So he must be both in order to accomplish salvation.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, probably the place that we'd want to make sure we land on here as we kind of wrap this discussion up is it can be easy to get lost in the weeds of theological controversy and not land the plane on this is why it really matters. Because if he's not, like you said, if he's not God, then he can't forgive sin. And if he's not fully man, then he can't act on our behalf. He can't be our substitute. He can't represent us. And so we're left stuck in our sins.
Yeah.
So this matters. And so it's the church's attempt to try to articulate in summary form what the Bible teaches about the nature of the two natures of Jesus and the one person that Jesus is.
Yeah. Good word. And this creed really marks the end of the patristic period. By this point, Rome is beginning to be overthrown. We're getting ready to enter the Middle Ages. Augustine, I believe, has died by this point, or if,
I think so.
If he hasn't, is getting close.
I think so by then.
So this is really the end of an era in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's certainly one of the marking points of the end of, like you said, the early church fathers. When you start to think early church fathers, this is kind of the end point of that.
And then the Middle Ages certainly brought some excellent scholars along. Thomas Aquinas for one, but yes, it does end the mark of like really, really excellent early church fathers.
Yeah. In terms of recommended resources, we're going to recommend pretty much the same that we've had in the past couple weeks. We've got a new link, though. Actually, that link for the summary of the Creed of Chalcedon there that's going to be in the show notes is from someone other than Justin Holcomb. That's just a nice 7-minute summary of what's going on with that. So we'll recommend that for your further pursuits. But we are ready to move on to our athlete?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Episode 63. John, who do we got?
Yeah, so first we have Gene Upshaw, who was a guard for the Raiders. I think he was a pretty good NFL player. Is that?
He was a very good NFL player.
I know him more as the representing the players, the Players Association.
Yeah, some of the stuff he was, the end of his career was really at the beginning of my awareness of pro football, so I didn't really know much about him, but I've seen people say he's one of the greatest Raiders of all time. And so the Raiders have had a lot of great players in their history. So, yeah, that's our first guy. Who's next? Leroy
Selman.
Yeah, you ever remember hearing about him?
No.
Defensive end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That back in the day when they wore the orange creamsicle.
Yeah, the creamsicle. Yeah,
uniforms there in the Hall of Fame there.
I didn't realize they had Hall of Famers before Warren Sapp. Really. Willie Lanier. Excuse me, Chiefs linebacker.
Yep, also in the Hall of Fame.
60s and 70s.
Yes. And then let's go to our Ohio State contingent. You've got Kirk Loudermilk.
Nice.
Center in the early 80s for the
Loudermilk.
Buckeyes. And then Michael Bennett was a defensive tackle, not to be confused with the Michael Bennett who played for the Seahawks.
Different Michael Bennett.
Different
we had
Michael
this conversation
Bennett, yes.
pre-pod.
Yeah, Michael Bennett, the Ohio State grad, is still in the NFL, plays for the Falcons, but not the same caliber NFL player as Michael Bennett for the Seahawks. And if he's still with the Seahawks, I can't remember if he's moved on from there. But in any case, any inclinations, leanings?
As much as I like the name Loudermilk.
It's a great name.
Yeah. It's hard to beat Gene Upshaw and his contributions to football.
Agreed.
Just through his work with the Players Association, making it what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gene Upshaw it is. John, one thing you liked.
Oh, boy, I'm excited about this one. It's so weird and nerdy. There is a bench player for the New York Mets. His name is, you're going to love this name, Luis Guillorme.
Okay.
Luis Guillorme. He is spring training famous.
Okay.
4 or 5 years ago, a broken bat went into the dugout, and he caught it one-handed and threw it back on the field. He is spring training famous. Well, yesterday, being Sunday, I put on the spring training game, was just doing other things around the house, and I looked up, and Luis Guillorme, who's got an excellent glove and I think will make the big league roster this year, was up to bat, and the Cardinals put on the mound a flamethrower. He was hitting 102 on the gun consistently. Luis Guillorme fouled off a number of pitches. I don't know how many exactly, but drew a 22-pitch walk in spring training. So Luis Guillorme drawing a 22-pitch walk is worth your time and worth the 5 minutes on social media.
Okay.
How about yourself, Doc?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with I just finished a novel this past weekend by Marilynne Robinson called Gilead. It's actually pretty well known. I think it came out maybe 10 years ago now. It's about this pastor who is lives in the Midwest, is dying of some sort of heart condition, and he is writing like short journal entries / letters to his young son. He married late in life, has this like 5 or 6 year old son. And so he knows he's going to die. And so he's writing these letters about things that happened in the past, just important advice, and telling the story of this friend of his who has a son who's kind of a prodigal, who comes back into town and gets involved in their lives. And it's really good. It's really good. So
interesting.
I would highly recommend that. So that's my one thing I liked.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked about March Madness.
A lot of madness.
Yeah. We've talked about the Creed of Chalcedon. We've talked about the hypostatic union, the two natures, the one person.
The tome.
The tome of Leo. We have talked about Gene Upshaw. We've talked about, what was the Mets player's name again?
Luis Guillorme.
Okay. And we've talked about Marilynne Robinson's Gilead. I'm a little late to the party on that one. But I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. So are you ready to call mission accomplished here?
I think so.
Okay. So before I sign off, I do want to remind you, sign up for the bracket competition. We would love to see a lot of people participate.
Yes.
So please make sure you find your way over there before Friday. Sign up. And we'd love to have the sort of listener participation piece of this happen. So, but I think having said that, all that's left to say now is until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.